Hi, this video is about finding half of numbers that go up into the 10,000s. Okay, so let's start with something very straightforward, just to recognize that finding half is the same as dividing by 2, just as long as we know that, and reminding ourselves that finding a half is the opposite of doubling. It's always useful to keep that in mind. If you can't think of what a half is, think of what would I need to double to make a particular number. Okay, 2 divided by 2. That's an easy one to kick off with. 1. Okay, when you divide a number by itself, then the answer that you're always going to get is 1. Now we've got 20 divided by 2, or half of 20. I know that you know that it's 10. Can you see a link between 2 divided by 2 and 20 divided by 2? And then can you see a link with the quotients? Remember that quotient is the answer that you get from a division problem. Can you see a link between 1 and 10 and a link between 2 and 20? What do you notice? Hopefully you notice that 20 is 10 times bigger than 2. And that's why when we've divided by the same number we get an answer that's 10 times bigger. Great, well how can we use that to help us? We notice that 200 is 10 times bigger than 20, so we're going to get an answer that's 10 times bigger than this, because we're still dividing by 2. But it also makes sense. What's half of 200? What's 200 divided by 2? Of course it's 100. You can probably see the pattern, so I will complete the answers here. Half of 20,000, 10,000. Great, well we use some of this information to help us do things like this. 2.4 divided by 2, or half of 2.4. Well, if I'm not confident at doing that, I'll use a number fact that I can do. 24 divided by 2. And just to remind you, or give you a strategy as to how to do that, remember that 24 can be split into 20 and 4. And if I divide both of these by 2 separately, and then combine the answers, 10 plus 2 is 12, then that gives me the answer to 24 divided by 2. How can I use that to help me answer some of these? Well, if 24 divided by 2 is 12, then if I divide a number that's 10 times smaller than 24, which is this one, then I'll get an answer that's 10 times smaller. So that was 10 times smaller. 1.2 is 10 times smaller than 12. Okay, we'll go in this direction now, getting bigger. 10 times bigger than 24. Half of 240 is 120. So half of 240 is 120. Half of 2,400, you can see the pattern. Half of 24,000 is 12,000. So what do we learn from this slide? We learn that we can use number facts to help us, number facts that we already know. We can also split a number into its constituent parts and divide them separately and then combine at the end. So that's sort of the splitting side to division, in the same way that we've seen it for multiplication and addition. Okay, I've only changed the number very slightly. I've changed it from 24 to 25 because I want to test what happens when we have an odd number at the end. It might look tricky to start with because odd numbers, as we know, don't divide perfectly by 2. But here comes our splitting friend again. Split 25 into 20 and 5 and divide them both separately. Half of 20 is 10. Half of 5 is 2.5, or 2.5. Now combine them again. What's that? How do you read that? 12.5. Great, or 12.5. So half of 25 is 12.5. We can use that to help us work out this by making it 10 times smaller. Or we can use it to help us do 250 divided by 2 because this is going to be 10 times bigger. And the last one, half of 25,000. Well, what is half of 25? 12.5. Make that answer 1,000 times bigger. Okay, another way that we might approach 250 is to break up 250 into 200 and 50 and divide them by 2 separately. Let's look at a similar example right here. 36. All I've changed, well, what I would like to look at in more detail here is what happens if the tens is an odd number. So my preferred way of doing it is to split 36 into 30 and 6, divide them separately, and combine the answers. So half of 36 is 18. That means half of 3.6 is 1.8. Half of 360 is going to be 10 times bigger than the answer to 36 divided by 2. And finally 18,000. Again, there's a way of doing 360 that involves splitting. Split 360 into 360 and divide them both separately. Half of 300 is 150, half of 60 is 30. Combine them and you get 180. Okay, now let's go into something that has 3 different digits and there's no zeros. 368 divided by 2. Split it into 360 and 8. Divide them all separately and you get 150, 30 and 4. Add those all together and you get 184. So that's 184. Now we can use that to help us do half of 36.8 divided by 2. And we can use that to help us work out half of 3.68. Another way that I might do a large number like this at the bottom is to break this up into 30,000, 6,000 and 800 and divide them all by 2. And here you would get 15,000, 3,000 and 400, and when you add them up you get 18,400. So it still works out. Okay, I'm going to leave you with these 3 questions. 75. What's half of 75? 820. What's half of 820? And 934. What's half of that? The video is going to pause for 15 seconds while you think about how you might do those. And after that, I'm going to give you a little hint, but I won't actually give you the answer. Okay. So here's my hint. For finding half of 75, I'll split 75 into 70 and 5. To find half of 820, I would split it into 800 and 20. And if I was going to find half of 934, I'd split it out into 900, 30 and 4. Hopefully you can then work out what to do next and provide the answers. Okay, good luck and thanks for watching. Bye.